Panthers Lightning Game 3, Islanders Hurricanes Game 3. Just two games for us here on PuckTime to discuss on WagerTalk TV. I am Andrew McGinnis, and I am joined by Mr. 5% winner himself, Carmine Bianco, cashing that ticket early on with the over in the Kings and Oilers game. We're in a great mood here today on PuckTime. Look forward to breaking down these games. Carmine, good morning to you, sir. How are you, and what are your thoughts? Panthers and Lightning Game 3.
Yeah, you're in a much better mood than I am. Off a 1-3 night the previous night, 1-1 yesterday, but 2% loser on the Stars, a 5% winner on the total in the Oilers game. So I'm happy. Overall, a profit, and that's all that matters for my clients is just continue to win. Andrew, this is here we are. It's this game could set up an elimination night in game 4 unless Tampa Bay finds something and finds it fast in this one. You know, I looked at this line up and down, and it's minus 115 right now for Tampa Bay. And I get it. It's home ice, minus 115 at home. They should be a slight favorite. And, you know, the total's at 6 in this one. You know, it's one of those ones where, like, I even looked at, you start looking for a play within a game in which you may not like. And that's how I feel about this game is a game that I don't like. Who do I want to win? I want Tampa to win because I want each and every series to go as long as it possibly can, maybe other than the one we're going to talk about shortly. But Tampa's got to do something. This Florida team is just playing extremely well right now. And they're tough to beat, but it's in Tampa. It's at home. Vasilevsky needs to be better. This is one I think they can win, Andrew. I looked at even the team totals on this one, and the price is just too high. It's on the over 2.5 for Tampa Bay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's like minus 180. The over 3.5 is plus money, and that's the problem. Is I could never take Tampa over 3.5. At plus money, mainly because of the fact that I don't think Florida is the type of team that's going to allow 4 goals in the playoffs on occasion. I don't even know if they did it last year, other than in the Stanley Cup, where injuries took their toll, and and Vegas just blew them out of the water. This is one of the ones where I'm going to lean the under. I think Tampa's way of winning is the same way that the Florida Panthers win, which is it's got to be a low-scoring game. You've got to score. You got to get out on top and force Florida to get to you or through you. It's one of those ones where you look at the analytical numbers from the previous 2 games, and it just shouts under as far as the analytics go, whether it's high danger chances, whether it's shots on goal, whether it's expected goals scored. Everything screams under in this game, and I'm surprised it's not 5.5. I think that would probably bring in some of the market in taking the over in this one. Much like the Leafs first couple of games was 5.5, went to 6 yesterday. The books adjusted. This one's at 6. I think it should be a 5.5. So with that said, I can't pick a winner in this one, guys. I'm not going to tell you to bet something that I'm not going to bet myself, but I will take the under.
All right. It's hard to argue, Carm, with the way these goaltenders are playing right now. What a battle it's been. Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky. So many times I'm sitting on my couch watching these games, and you start to get excited. You think a goal is about to come 100%, and then Bobrovsky turns around with his arm and makes a big save, or Vasilevsky sticks his trapper out and makes a big save. So, when you look at these series and you look at the offense they're creating, well, the over could be in the picture, but then with how many guys are jumping in front of shots, blocking shots, and the way the goalies are playing, the under is definitely right there. I always talk about the last change, but I think it is big for the Tampa Bay Lightning to get those matchups that they want. It's crucial for them. But I think, we've had a lot of comments over the last couple of days here where people are saying, hey, guys, this Tampa Bay team is not the same Tampa team as they were 4 years ago. And we're going to find out what team they are. They lost several guys that were on that championship winning roster that they had, but I still think that we can get more out of them. Now, the problem that I still have, Carm, with this team is that they've been kind of known to be power play guys, right? I mean, you can't be just a power play team in the playoffs. I mean, you watch their power play. The chemistry is unbelievable. The way they sling the puck around, they always know where their guy is. But you can't just score goals on the power play in the postseason. They need some 5-on-5 play. But one thing I found here in this series is that Florida, although they don't take their foot off the gas pedal, when they score the first goal, it's unbelievable for them to protect it. The way they can keep the lead, the way they get confidence, the way if Bobrovsky gets a 1 or 2 goal lead, he's comfortable enough to win the game for the Panthers. So I've never really given out a bet like this in the show, I don't think. But my main play on this game for the show today is actually going to be -115. Lightning score the first goal. I just think getting out there in your building, first period, getting out in front is so important here. You know, it's very similar to the first period, I guess, here, Carm. But I guess, you know, if the first period ends 1-1, it's a push. I'm just hoping Tampa Bay is that team that comes out. The sense of urgency has to be there. And of course, it's there for every team that's down in a series. But we saw it with the Colorado Avalanche. We saw it with the Toronto Maple Leafs in game 2. We saw it with the Nashville Predators in game 2. Now we're here in game 3, back at your home arena you've had so much success in. So, yeah, kind of a little mix-up here today, Carm. -115, Tampa scores the first goal of the game.
Yeah, Andrew, I don't hate it. I like that play. I want to make a correction on something I said earlier, but also, in talking about, those first periods, you look at, they're at home now, so obviously the last change is very important. I think for them for Cooper to line match, and he's one of the best coaches in the game right now. But I talked about in game 2 that Tampa. I think my lean on the show was Tampa first period money line. I said, they need to come out and play much better than they did in game 1, and at the end of the period, it's Florida 2-0. They tied it up in the second period, obviously at 2-2. So it was obviously the wrong call there. With regards to what I had said earlier when I was talking about the analytics of this one, the books have adjusted from like 5.5 to like 6 in this one. I think that was based on, you look at some of the analytics of it, because if you look at both games, I talked about the numbers being low. The numbers that's where I was wrong. The numbers are actually high as far as the analytics with regards to expected goals only. High danger chances are pretty much where they should be. But the analytics were high, and both games landed on 3-2. And that's where, and it's something very important where guys like Dave Koken will tell you, it's the eye test. You watch the game, and it looks like there's a lot of great up and down, and it's going to be a high scoring game. It isn't, because the minute they get into the O zone, the defense takes over. They're checking, the shots are coming from outside the faceoff circles. The goalies are protected in front of the net, and you got 2 very good goalies in Bobrovsky and Vasilevsky in the series. So high XG number in this series, I don't think is as important as it's been in other series in trying to forecast what the next game is going to be as far as totals go. So that's the correction I wanted to make, because I was wrong as far as the XG numbers were low. They aren't. If you look at the first 2 games, Andrew, where is it here? Game 1, final XG was combined 6.1 in all situations. XG. In game 2, sorry, that's wrong. Hold on a second, Andrew. I've got that. I'm just like all over the place on this one. Give me a second. I apologize, guys. This
all good.
On this one, I'll get there in a second. It was on even strength for some reason. So, Andrew, in game 1,
okay, go ahead.
The final XG was 6.79, and the final score was 3-2. Final score in game 2, 3-2, 8.18 of XG created. So if you're a guy who bet the over and you look at these numbers, you're like, how do I not get there in these games? And you don't get there because there are 2 teams that can play defense. There's 2 teams that have very good goalies in net, and there are 2 teams that know how to shut down another team. And the XG is still created with good chances. It's just good goaltending as well too. So apologies, I got there eventually. I talked way too much.
All good.
But I got there.
All good. Just 2 games. Carm, I want to throw a question to you, and you know that I look at the expected goal numbers as well. But one thing I think I didn't factor in is that the expected goal numbers we look at post game aren't the same numbers you look at during the regular season, because you know how at the end of the year, we're always talking about the teams that are out of the playoffs. We bet overs because there's just not that defensive intensity. They're not jumping in front of shots. They're not blocking them. Well, it's quite the opposite in the playoffs. Like, I mean, the amount of blocked shots, and that's a prop bet that I've only bet a handful of times in my life. Every book will give you 3 or 4 guys for over on 1.5 or 2.5 block shots. But did you think about that? And have you ever thought about that? Because I've had to realize that, there's so many chances, but the expected goal numbers are being created, I think, in an opportunity for a player. I don't think it's about the actual save that was made afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, and it's hard to figure out, but I think it's based on the setup and how things work. Because there's been so many times where a guy like yesterday in the Bruins and Leafs game, wide open shot for a Bruins player, and Joel Edmondson is lying in front of the net and he blocks the shot with his kneecaps. That's not really seen in the regular season, right? It's just different in the playoff hockey.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there, and this is why when you have, we talked about it before, when you have 2 or 3 different sites, and they have a different criteria on how they come up with their or generate their XG numbers, you have to, I look at one, and the one I look at because I think it's the most reliable for me, anyways, throughout the season has been Natural Stat Trick, and that's the site that I look at. You can look at the heat maps. You can look at where the goals were scored from to see if they're in tight shots from the point, deflected shots. You can find everything on there, Corsi numbers and such. So it's the one site I use, but I know that there's other good ones. Like I think you said, Money Puck is another one. But I gravitate to one site, and it's worked for me at least for 2024. It's worked for me. 2023 was a rough start, Andrew, but with that, listen, I get it. It's not a registered shot on goal because it's blocked, but into an open net where they should score is going to give you a high XG number for that specific play. I think that's where we're getting at, right?
For sure. And you mentioned the different websites that people use. And I think that the most important thing, and I think you mentioned it, is just to use the same one. Like if I use Money Puck and you use Natural Stat Trick, if you're using that throughout the season, it's probably best to just stick to using the one you've always used.
Yeah.
Because that way you're not getting different numbers every night. So I think no matter which one you're using, guys, just use the same one. Just keep using the one that you're already using. And that way you get the same numbers and same formulas.
Guys, if you have a question, whether you're on in the regular chat, whether you're on Instagram or the YouTube Shorts, drop it. We'll try and answer some questions because we have a couple games to go. Andrew, before we do the second game, I got to tell you what happened to me yesterday. So it's funny because first of all, someone commented on yesterday's video about the Leaf fans, and he's like, I don't know what Leaf fans Carm's talking about or his friends. He goes, but I'm not planning a parade anytime soon. I'm talking about like my comments are directed. I mentioned yesterday, directed at my friends who have been my friends for 30, 40 plus years through grade school, high school, university. That in our chats, they're always like, the parade's back on, and then they lose and they're like, cancel the parade. It just goes on and on. So yesterday I go, Andrew, a quick story. I'm going to try and make it a quick story. I go and get my snow tires taken off my truck and regular tires put on. And my friend's the head mechanic at the dealership. I go, he's a Leaf fan. And, I'm joking around with him. So I'm waiting. I come out. I take care of the bill. I go to the car. They had detailed it. I get into it. I get into the truck and I head home. And every once in a while, someone's honking at me. And I'm like, why are they honking at me? I'm driving the speed limit. Why are they honking at me? I'm listening to the radio as well, too. I get home, close the door, and on the other side of my truck, he had put a Leafs flag on it, the window flag. He had put the Leafs flag on my truck. So I'm driving around with a Leafs flag on my truck. He got me back. He got me. They got me. I took it off, of course. It's in the recycle bin. But they got one over on me. So if he's watching right now, you got me. I was wondering why they were
That's
honking at
awesome.
me.
That's a good friend right there, Carm. That's hilarious. The little prank. And I'm sure that's the best part about going to, you got a buddy that's fixing your car for you, a buddy that's cutting your hair, buddy that, you got friends that are going to be, pulling jokes like that on you. That's what it's all about. And I'm sure it was a chaotic night in the city last night. Carm, big day today at WagerTalk.com. $5 customer appreciation day. Just one play for each handicapper, discounted to just $5. We teased it yesterday. All kinds of plays are usually 25, 35, 19. But today only, you're going to get your favorite handicappers bets bet across all sports, MLB, NBA, NHL, for just $5. We also want to shout out Tony Mejia, as he has a 5% play over at sportsmemo.com. Tony is back, and you can find him at sportsmemo.com. So a big day all around, and kind of a quiet day in the NHL playoffs with just 2 games. But hey, we'll try and make some money here. And there's all kinds of games, day games in the MLB. And we've got NBA tonight as well. And man, I honestly, Carm, it's a hockey show, but I got to just say, if we're talking about upsets, I think it was like a 15-point spread in the NBA game yesterday, Celtics and Heat, and the Heat win by 10. That was awesome. Anybody watched that game? You love to see it. I just cheer for the underdogs all the time, so I love seeing that upset happen. All right, Carm, so here's what's funny. I don't think we've talked about this series yet on Puck Time, and I don't think any show I've been on, anybody wants to talk about this series, but it's only 2 games, man. You had to schedule us for the Hurricanes and the Islanders. And no, we've talked about this one, actually, not the Rangers and Capitals one. It's mostly been the Hurricanes and the Islanders, I believe we have spoken about. But here we are in game 3. Game 2 was up for the grabs for the Islanders, and it was an absolute and utter collapse. That can be deflating. They're back at home now, but after you collapse like that with a couple minutes to go, giving up a handful of goals, regulation bettors ended up winning for the Hurricanes. Puck line bettors ended up winning for the Hurricanes, and they were down a handful of goals with only 5 minutes to go. Do you think this Islanders team has what it takes to respond here, game 1 at home?
Yeah, we haven't, we could have talked more about this series, but the game prices in Carolina were so high. We chose to do the more competitive games. Andrew, here's the thing. When you talk about this series, it's game 3. So it's the do or die game for the New York Islanders. And that doesn't mean, it's a must win. It doesn't mean that they're going to win. That is just something you talk about with your friends. Having to win doesn't mean you're going to win. And here, the problem here is you look at game 2 and you look at the final numbers of this game, and it's tough to believe that the New York Islanders actually had a 3-0 lead in that game. The final shots on goal in a 5-3 game for Carolina, that the New York Islanders led 3-0, 39-12 for Carolina. So they scored 3 goals on 12 shots. The high danger chances, 23-9 for Carolina. The expected goals, 6.17 to 1.92 for Carolina. What does that tell you? Carolina was the dominant team in that game, fell behind 3-0, just stuck with their game, battled back, and won. Do I expect the Islanders to play better tonight? It's their first game at home. It's going to be loud at UBS Arena. I got that one right. UBS Arena. It's going to be loud, but the Canes have been here before in their playoff runs. They've been to arenas that are loud. Get through the first 10 minutes or so, quiet that crowd. You know what quiets the crowd? Score a goal. Get up 1-0. If the Canes get out in front, you have to believe that this game is theirs to win. And it's going to set up elimination night a couple nights later in this series. This is a series that the Canes are going to win. It's just a matter of whether they win it in 4 or whether they win it in 5. Canes are the play here. It's -160, -165. You can take that a couple ways. If you want to put a couple units on it, you take one on the money line, you take one on the puck line, and you bring that down almost to an even money play, or you take them in regulation, which is at even money as well too. The total, I'm not even going to touch it. It's at 5.5, and it's because if the Canes can generate that much XG in one game, and they scored 5, um, God only knows what happens if they score early, and it could become one of those early and often ones. I'd like to see every series go longer, but this is one that I just don't see it going past 5 games. So with that said, Canes for me. You're muted, Andrew.
I was going to say all the Islanders fans have officially left the live chat here on YouTube Shorts and Instagram.
Just
They're
like
done with
Andrew,
us. They don't want to hear.
Andrew,
They don't want to hear about it.
and Andrew, I
Uh,
will say this. I will say this. Okay, so one of my friends, he's this Islanders season ticket holder, Brian Owens. I know he's going to tweet at me now, or because of what I'm saying about them. And then tonight, I'm going out with my 2 brothers. We're going for dinner with our significant others. One's a Leaf fan, one's an Islanders fan. I'm a Sabres fan. 2 of them have made the playoffs. One of them hasn't. We already know that. So I'm going to be sitting there with an Islanders fan cheering for the Canes. What can I tell you? While eating swords of meat. I'm going to a Brazilian steakhouse tonight. I don't know why I had to add that, but give me your thoughts on this game.
I went to a place like that, Carm, when I was away. It was really good. I hope you have a good time, man. Yeah, look, I like the overall in this game here, and the reason being is that, you know, I think that a perfect example might be the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers series. And I'm not saying that the Hurricanes are the Oilers and the Kings are the Islanders, but I think it's a little bit comparable because you know who's generating the offense the most. It's obviously the Hurricanes. You know who would like it to be a defensive game and a low scoring game. That's probably the Hurricanes. But Carm, you know, as someone yesterday that had the over for a big play like yourself, I would probably have preferred what happened for you, for the LA Kings to get out in front, because you knew the Edmonton Oilers were going to get their goals. They were going to get their goals for sure. And so you got the team that you could probably trust the least to score first. And then the Edmonton Oilers, they get going and you cashed your ticket 2 periods in or less than that. And that's kind of how I feel about this one. I feel like we're going to see a better offensive New York Islanders team. We're going to see a good game from Bo Horvat. We're going to see a good game from Matt Barzal. But is that enough for 60 minutes? I think you were so spot on when you said, if that's the expected goal numbers Carolina creates, and that's just the 3rd period of scoring, what can they do if they have that, performance and execution for 60 minutes? So we're seeing a 5.5 because I think the reputation these teams have, right? I mean, you look at the past 2 games, you look at what these teams are known for, but I think the Hurricanes are a different team this year as far as what they bring offensively. They've always been a deep forward group as far as like 200-foot players. You bring in Jake Gensel. Kuznetsov's been a pretty good add to the team as well. Seth Jarvis had a career year. This team just looks different offensively. So I think, once the Islanders realize they're not going to be able to beat them playing their game, they're going to have to play their game, the Hurricanes, and outscore them. And I'm not sure they can do it, but if they try and do it, they're going to score goals themselves, but they're also going to get goals against them by not sitting back. The first team to 4 or 5 wins this game. I truly believe it. We're seeing a 4 or 5.5 as the total. And especially in a series where they're trying to avoid going down 3-0. If the Islanders are down 2 goals, we might see not 1, but 2 empty net goals, Carm, which are, that's a quality, good portion of the goals here if you're trying to get over 5.5. So I think you can make a pretty good case for the over in this one. I think that a lot of people might look at it and say, well, it's going to be a real tight game. New York wants to hang on for everything they have. I think they have to try and beat Carolina at their game, because if they don't start fast and get goals early, I think they're screwed. So over 5.5 to me is the play.
Yeah, Andrew, when you talk about it, and that's the numbers I was trying to reference, or that I mentioned. when I was trying to talk about the Tampa Bay one, is the first Islanders game 3-1 for the Hurricanes, and that one was 6.1 xG generated, and then in the 5-3 game it was 8.0 xG generated in that game. So there's a lot of chances. The thing is, you think about this and you look at the two games, and it's the eye test is that the Islanders have started well in both games. They just have not finished well in both games, and you have to play 60 solid minutes to beat the Carolina Hurricanes in a game, especially in the playoffs and in Carolina. So they weren't able to do it there. We'll see if they're able to do it tonight. A couple. I think an Instagram one. Matty Crenshaw, thank you. On the 5, he gave me kudos on the 5% play. Said his Italian wife took 50% of the money he won. Justin in our regular YouTube chat asks about, do I look at how much public bets are on this on games, and if when people are betting on must-win situations. I don't look at where the public's betting. We'll look for line movements, and we talked about all season long. You see a line move, especially on our WagerTalk live lines. It's free. You have it up on your screen if you're whatever you're doing. You can check it every once in a while. If you see a big movement, it normally is not public money. I don't even think it's sharp money. I think sometimes in the NHL, if a line moves 30 cents or 40 cents, that's something to do with goaltending, something to do with players out of the lineup. More so than that, I don't think there's that much movement on it. And sometimes, and the public gets it right. So it's not as if the public's always wrong. Must-win situations, sometimes the team wins. It doesn't mean they won because it was a must-win. They just won the game because they were better on that night. I hope that answers that question. Andrew, anything to add on that?
Carm, I'm sorry. I was actually answering somebody in the chat. I didn't hear your last part. I feel like a
All
bad
right.
co-host.
It's okay.
I feel like a bad
It's all
co-host.
good. Guys,
I'm sorry.
Since we have a few minutes left, so it happened yesterday because I saw some messages in the chat. We're talking about the Leafs and the Bruins. They don't play again until Saturday, so we're obviously not going to cover it tomorrow because there's 4 games tomorrow. We're going to cover 3 of them. But I'm going to tell you right now, I am going to be on the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday. There, you can get them anywhere from -110 to -115 right now in the WagerTalk live lines. I am going to be betting them. Getting William Nylander back in the lineup. He was on the ice. He was in the morning skate yesterday. He stayed on with the scratches. I think the fact that they had 2 days off as opposed to 1 day off, they decided to give him 1 more day off. If they were down 0-2 in the series, he would have played last night. The guy played all 82 games this season. They need him in the lineup. Their power play is 1 for 11. And they're not looking good. They need him in the lineup, and maybe that does something to Marner because Marner's been non-existent as well, it seems. Although he did make he did have a nice assist on the I think on the tying goal, Andrew. But Nylander will play on Saturday. You have to believe it. It should help the power play. Of course, the guy is a valuable player to that team and their scoring. I believe the Leafs evened up the series at 2, and it becomes a best-of-3 series heading back to Boston. So I wanted to mention that, Andrew. The officiating wasn't the best yesterday. Marchand, there was a clear trip on Bertuzzi, and I know you want to comment on that one.
Yeah, definitely. And, Carm, I apologize about a few moments ago. Was it the public betting that you were asking me about, or was it something else? Because I was listening to that part. Okay. Well, I do sincerely apologize. I thought it was something else you were asking me. As far as that goes, I think that's more something I look towards, like Steve Merrill does with point spread sports, like the NFL, like the NBA. I think in the NHL with a money line sport, handle isn't as important. It's good to be kind of aware of more so where the money is going and how the odds are moving and things like that. One thing I like to do is look at the opening number and then, after puck time or at 4:00 Eastern time, look to see how much different the number is from the opener. That's kind of where I like to look at it. But people shouldn't make their bets around it. That's for sure. the big thing for me, Carm, is the special teams. That's the biggest thing in the series for the Leafs and Bruins. Point blank, period. No Leaf fan should be blaming Samsonov for any games, I don't believe. It's special teams. You cannot have the top two, or I think it was number one or number two scoring team in the entire league that's just getting shut down on the power play. And, 1 for 11 is just not good enough. It's not going to cut it. And when you get those opportunities in the playoffs, you have to take advantage of it. But one thing I wanted to add was, it's hard to give out live bets, obviously, before a game's going on. But I'll tell you, like, with empty netters happening, with these games, the way they've been going, I was able yesterday to get over 5.5 at like plus 115 or 120 after the first period. And I wasn't happy because I had the first period over 1.5. And I'm not saying that that's something you should do all the time, right? I mean, Carm, we don't recommend, chasing a bet, so to speak. But a lot of the times you can be watching these games and it's just how life goes, man. You have the over 1.5 goals and you're going to see 2 minutes into the second period, a goal is going to happen, right? 5 minutes into the second period, there's going to be 2 goals, right? And then all of a sudden you're back on track to get your over. So I'll tell you guys, if whether you're betting the unders, betting the overs, and you can tell a lot of the times based on some of these teams, like I'm a firm believer that in the Nashville and Vancouver series, when Nashville wins games in that series, the games are going to go under. I think that when Vancouver wins games, they're going to go over, or at least their team total will go over. That to me, I mean, if Nashville goes out and gets a 2-0 lead in a game, I think that you live bet the under. They're going to do whatever they can to protect that lead. If they end up losing that game, it'll be 3-2 Vancouver. So it's interesting to me to look at. Carm, we'll discuss on tomorrow's show more of the Leafs and Bruins game in depth. But I'm waiting for the offensive explosion game. We haven't seen it. Samsonov's played well, Allmark played well, and Swayman is now 2-0 in the series. I mean, I'm waiting for the game that's like 6-5. I'm not sure we're going to see it. And that's the problem. It's very deceiving right now, is that betting overs in that series, we have to tip our cap to the goaltenders and the guys blocking shots. And you mentioned, those plays that aren't being called penalties. And again, I think there could have been definitely a penalty on the first one. I think the first play where McAvoy took down Matthews, I think people should be more mad about that one than the play that Matt Marchand took down Bertuzzi. To me, like the whole slew foot, wrap the arm around, throw Matthews to the ice, that's more of a clear penalty. But the Marchand and Bertuzzi thing, I think, if you're a Bruins fan, you're saying to yourself, hey, both of those guys are wrestling. You can't take one guy off. And I get it. Leafs are saying, well, hey, my guy's the guy that flopped to the ground. He's the one that went down. But I think it's too much gamesmanship. Those guys have been the biggest rivalry of the series, Carm. I think it's been fun to watch. But overall, I'll just say this. If you see a dull moment in the Leafs and Bruins game, you see an adjustment in the total, wouldn't be a bad idea to jump in on the over. Any thoughts on that, Carm? Yeah. And we're good to go.
Yeah. I know we're talking about a Saturday game. We're mixing it up a little bit. There was a question, and then I'm going to get to Andrew, my final thought on the Leafs one. But this comes from Soul Leaf 10. Since the Islanders starts have been so good, do you think you think over 1.5 first period is a good bet? I wouldn't take the total in the first period, because if the Islanders get off to a good start and they're up 1-0 at the end of the first period, then they've gotten off to another good start and that game has stayed under the total. So you could take the Islanders first period money line if you want at plus 105 and see if with the last change, the crowd behind them, the noise, and being at home, if they can get off to a positive start again at plus 105, you're going to cash. If it's tied at the end of one, whether it's 1-1 or if it's 0-0, you're pushing on your bet. But trying to tie one thought to the other, like they get off to good starts, so bet the over. I wouldn't. I don't correlate the two together. So that's my thought on that one. And Andrew, one final thought on the other one, because I talk about like looking at series bets even during the series. Honestly, the goalies, the Samsonov's been good for the Leafs. I get guys are saying that he's terrible. The Bruins are going to continue to alternate. It's going to be Allmark in game 4, and then it's going to be Swayman in game 5. That's what they keep doing. Swayman's beaten the Leafs now, I think, 5 or 6 games in a row. So you would think, why don't they just stick with Swayman? He'll play games 5 and 7 if needed. The Leafs are plus 230 right now to win the series. Honestly, for a couple slices of pizza, I would take that, because if the Leafs win game 4 on Saturday, which I hope they do, then that price is going to come right back down to Bruins minus 120, Bruins minus 130-ish. And you're sitting with the Leafs plus 230 in a 3-game series where the Leafs have already won in Boston. So we shall see. But plus 230 looks just a little too tempting for me right now, Andrew.
It's a quality price. It's a quality price. And I'll tell you, if they go back to Allmark, man, and the Leafs win, it's going to be really weird for Jim Montgomery. And I think both goalies played well, but I've heard all kinds of Carm, you and I are on the same page, right? You think they're going to go back to Allmark, or you think they should go to Swayman, but they're going to go to Allmark?
I think they should stick with Swayman. Yeah, I think they should stick with Swayman, but he's alternated back and forth. Maybe the fact that they have 2 days off in between games makes a difference. But the problem here is if he goes with Swayman off on 2 days rest, and they were to lose game 4 and it's 2-2, it sort of ruins the rotation that he has, because they play there's 1 day of rest when they return to Boston, and then they play right away. So what does he do there? Does he go to who does he want in game 7 if he's rotating games? If it was to even go 7 games, I'm saying. Who does he want to be in net in game 7? He's going to want Swayman, because Swayman's been the better goalie between him and Allmark, and Swayman's got the better record against the Leafs. I think they flashed something up. I think they flashed up that he was 5-0 going into that game. He was on a 5-0 run against the Leafs. I think it's 6-0. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. I think he's won his last 6 starts against the Leafs.
That's what he's done all year. And I said it since the beginning. I think it's important to have your number one guy. It's an advantage to have 2 great goalies, but you got to have your number one guy. All right, Carm, for me, one best bet in the NHL. That play is not the $5 play. I do a $5 play going in the Major League Baseball world, though. So you guys can get that for just $5, Customer Appreciation Day. And of course, find all of my plays over at WagerTalk.com. And of course, all the great deals going on right now at WagerTalk. Go to my profile page. All kinds of great specials. No promo codes needed. What do you have going today, Carm?
Yeah, one play up as far as, and it's the $5 Customer Appreciation. WagerTalk, all the cappers are taking part of it. You can get one of their packages up with a play in it for $5. You can get as many as you want. No coupon is needed. It's a great promo from our Detroit office. And I have a soccer client play up as well, too, for any of my soccer clients. We're going to keep that run going. April's been very good in Europe as well, too. I'm going to have it'll be up later on today on my page at WagerTalk. The office is going to take care of it. I'm going to have a rest of the NHL playoffs and all of soccer through the summer tournaments, 3 big tournaments, the Euros, the League Cup, and the Copa America that is taking place in the U.S. this year. Argentina and Canada playing at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. I think I'm going to go watch that game. It's not going to turn out well, but I'm still going to go watch it. Guys, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit that like button, and I wish you guys the best of luck tonight. And we're going to see you tomorrow with 3 big games on the show.